So we had a great day on the lake. We ended up with 14 total trout, mostly rainbow trout, a couple of smaller cutthroat trout. Out there on that lake, you can't keep anything between 15 and 22 inches. So we did keep a couple of small cutthroats. Their meat is really pink if you want to look. That's a cutthroat. It's unwashed, obviously. And that's a rainbow. So you can tell it's a little pinker, looks more like salmon. The cat really likes the scraps. So stay back, Alice. Meow yourself. So the time to preserve food is when you've got a lot of it, right? The time to can peaches in August when the peaches are ripe and you've got a ton. The time to can tomatoes is in the summer when your tomatoes are, when the tomatoes are ripe. The time to feed a cat is 10 minutes ago. Alice, you're not fooling anybody. Anyway. Here, lick that. That'll be good. Here, there, eat that. Here, there you go. That'll keep it busy for 2 seconds. Okay, so like I said, the time to preserve food is when you've got abundance. When the green beans are ripe, that's the time you bottle green beans. Tomatoes, like I said, so the time to preserve it is when you've got a lot of it. So you're not going to can tomatoes in January, February. So what do you do if you want tomatoes in January, February? You either go to the store and you buy them in the can, or you go down in your pantry or your fruit room or whatever and get a bottle of tomatoes you can during the summer. So the time of abundance is the time to preserve your food. So summertime is when we catch a lot of fish. My mom, when I was growing up, used to bottle fish all the time. She would just little pint jars. That's usually enough fish to feed quite a few. If you look at a can of tuna fish, it's that big and that thick. You get a lot of tuna fish out of that. So we're gonna can some of these in pint jars rather than quarts. Quarts is just gonna be way too much fish. We're gonna go along on this journey together. I've never done this before. I just remember my mom doing it. So I've talked to some family members to walk me through the process, and I'm gonna put my own little unique twist on the recipe and how to do it, and hopefully it'll turn out. We'll find out. We're on this journey together. We'll see how it goes. I'm also gonna save some of these fillets and we're gonna smoke them on our Traeger grill, which is something I've done quite a bit of, and I like doing that. So we'll do that with the excess fish. We've got quite a bit here. If you haven't seen my fillet video before, I think I did one a few months ago. Actually, ice fishing season's when I did that. But I like to fillet them like that, get all these little bones out. So trout, if you can see, I don't know if you can see, but right there's a little line of little bones right there. So when we bottle these fish, we're gonna put a little bit of vinegar in there, and when they pressure cook, the vinegar is gonna make these bones dissolve. So you'll eat the canned fish, you won't even notice a bone in it. So that's the idea. So then we take our knife, and we don't screw up the fillet. And there you go. You've got a fillet that is boneless, skinless for the most part, and ready for the jar or the smoker, whichever. As you can tell, I need to sharpen my knife. So you get any little bone we can find out. Also, you'll see this rib of fat right here. That is nasty tasting, especially on trout. So we're gonna fillet it, get that skin off it, and then we're just gonna cut and get rid of all that nasty fat like that, and that will take that nasty fish taste away. We'll feed that to the cat because she loves it. And then you've got a boneless, skinless, fatless fillet ready for the smoker or bottle or whatever, the deep fryer, however you like to cook your fish. One thing during the summer, because we do fish quite a bit, you can only eat fish so many times and you kind of get tired of it. So you deep fry it, you fry it, you bake it, however you like to prepare your fish. But you do get a little tired of it. So that's where the bottling comes in handy, and you can eat fish all year long. So that's the reason we're going to do this. So I kind of screwed up and cut that off the tail. So what you do is you just get it start like that, put your thumbnail into it like that, and that helps hold that skin, separates the skin from the fillet, and there you go. So we'll finish getting these filleted up, and then we'll go inside and I'll show you my marinating process that is going to be new to me for the canned fish, and then we'll do my smoked fish recipe that I've used quite a bit. And we'll get the fish marinating in separate batches for each of those processes, and we'll catch you back up then. So if you look, you can kind of see where this fish was a little darker on top. Some of these darker fish, the meat tends to be lighter than the pure silver fish. So they taste about the same, especially when they're canned or smoked. It's going to taste about the same, but you really see a contrast in the exact same species of fish. So especially during the late fall and stuff, when we catch fish like this, not only will the meat be white, but it'll be mushy. So if we catch a really dark rainbow trout, especially during fall, we'll turn it back because we know the meat's not good. But this meat's good and firm still, so we'll utilize that. You see how white that meat is? Which I like white meat fish, perch, walleye, catfish, white bass, bluegill. I really enjoy white meat fish. Halibut, unfortunately we don't have halibut in Utah, so that is not an option. So there you go, we got our fish all filleted. There's 14 fish in our bowl here. We're gonna go and wash it, clean it up real good, and then we'll put it in the brine and the marinade that we're gonna marinate both the smoked fish and the canned fish. So we'll go inside here and get that going as soon as I get my mess cleaned up. Take the all the fish bodies, and we're going to feed those to the chickens. They pick off that meat, and it's good protein for them, and utilizes all the fish, which is kind of what I'm all about, utilizing everything that we harvest, whether it's big game, small game, or fish. So let's go inside and we'll get this stuff marinated, and we'll start the process. Okay, so it's time to mix up our brine and marinade mix for the trout that we're going to smoke. I like to mess around and try a bunch of different recipes: soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, anything that you like. As long as you include salt with what you're doing, you're going to be fine with your brine. So we're going to try a new recipe tonight for our brine. First of all, we need a half a gallon, or in this case, that's enough to do 4 fillets. So we're going to do 8 fillets on the smoker. So we'll roughly get a gallon of water in here. So next thing we want to do, I'm not good at measuring stuff, but I'm going to measure it for this video. So right here, let's see, we need 1/8 cup of salt. So I use it's Redmond Real Salt. It's mined here in Utah. You know, they've got a big cave down there just full of salt. Anyway, it's good natural salt. It's pretty good for you. It's better than just normal salt that you can get. So 1/8 cup. Okay, so after some quick math, we need 1/8 cup of salt. So I have a 1/4 cup of salt. We're gonna fill this twice. One thing about this natural salt is it does kick up on you. This is why I don't like measuring. It's tedious. That's close enough. Get all the chunks out of there. Let's work smarter, not harder. How about that? Look at this. Got all those chunks in there. This is a good way to use up your chunks of salt. Okay, if you look, that salt's kind of got a red tint to it. That's one of the properties of this natural salt. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to take an 1/8 cup of brown sugar. I like brown sugar. So we're just going to wing it here. I'm going to make a mess if I try to get it in that little cup. What do you think? That's about 1/4, don't you think? Camera woman. And the next thing on our list is a tablespoon of pepper. And if you like your smoked trout a little spicy, you can add all kinds of stuff. Chili powder, Rudy's Rub's another good spicy marinade. I'm going to go off the recipe here a little bit because I love this Old Bay seasoning when it comes to seafood, fish, or anything that swims. So we're going to put a tablespoon of that in there. Then the soy sauce. So it calls for 1 tablespoon for 4 fish, 4 fillets. So we're going to double that up, and we're going to spill all over the counter. Then we're just going to mix all that up until it's nice. Everything's nice and dissolved, and it can. The salt's going to help cure the fish. It's going to help bring out the flavor. It's going to help preserve, and it's actually going to help tenderize the fish just a little bit. All right, I think that's nice and diluted. So I like to get the prettiest, nicest fillets for the smoker, and I'm partial to the pink trout. So we're going to smoke those nice pink ones. So you see my guesstimation was just about right. We've got enough brine that's going to cover the fish. We're probably going to brine this for at least a day. And you want to kind of mix it up a little bit fairly often to get that sugar and that salt suspended back in the solution so it permeates the fillets and does what it's supposed to do. So we're going to put that in the fridge here in a minute. So not only do I like to experiment with my smoked trout recipe, I'm also going to kind of freestyle here my canned trout recipe, even though I've never done this before. I've only seen it done, like I said, when I was a kid. But consulting with family, it's kind of a work in progress. You can do basically whatever you want to do with the marinade. So not only are we going to add a teaspoon of vinegar to the actual bottles when we can it, we're just going to put about a teaspoon in each of our marinades just to help break down those bones, give them a little head start. And then we'll add a little more when they actually go into the bottles. So what to do is just cut your fillets up, and you're just going to put those in the bottles. You don't want too big of chunks because you don't want to have a hard time filling your bottles. So we're just going to kind of guesstimate and figure out how much a pint is. We have 10 pints. So we're probably going to do a couple of pints, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Well, there again, we're going to wing it. And we'll have a couple of pints of the same and a couple of different. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I'm going to finish this process, and you'll come back when we're ready to add the spices and labels to all of these so we know what we've seasoned it with in the brine. So I'll catch you up in just a minute. Okay, now it's time that we get creative with these marinades. We're gonna keep track of what we put in here. We're gonna put a little brown sugar in this first one. That's the only one we're going to try brown sugar in because I'm not exactly confident that's going to turn out very well. And along with the brown sugar, we're going to put a little bit of salt. And we'll probably put salt in all of them. Because like I said in the smoked fish marinade, salt's going to do nothing but help preserve it. So we definitely want to preserve it. Okay, now is where we get creative. We're going to do soy sauce and brown sugar in that one, and salt. So we're going to write these down because I know I'll forget if I don't. You can kind of feel between the vinegar and the salt, it's starting to cure that meat already. It's starting to get firm and ready for the bottles. It's crazy how fast that process starts. Okay, this one's another favorite of mine. I think, yeah, I put some of this in the smoked trout recipe as well. This Old Bay seasoning for seafood just really tastes great. I like it. So we're going to do this one with Old Bay. And I'll take a little piece of tape on all these as they marinate overnight, and it's just so we can identify them before we actually put them in the bottles and pressure cook them. So we'll just say goodnight for now and let these chill out, marinate, spill. It's been a long day. I am toasted in the sun, as you can probably tell. The sun really takes it out of you. So I got a mess to clean up here.
Yes, you do.
And we will tuck these little dudes away in the fridge and let them stew overnight. And we'll catch you tomorrow when we start the pressure cooking process and the smoking process. So have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, welcome back to the next day. All of our fish has been marinating in the marinade, vinegar, and the different spices that we're going to try. So we're going to go ahead and stuff the jars full of each of the fish. I'm going to take the lid tops. I'm going to write what it is on the top, and then when I place it in the pressure cooker, I'm actually going to take a picture of it so we don't lose track of what's what. So that's the plan. We'll get going, and we'll start with our Cajun seasoned fish first. You can kill that fish. You can see it's kind of getting pickled. It smells really good. So we're just going to jam this jar full of Cajun fillets. I'm going to stack them like that because I think it looks nicer rather than having them stacked flat. If we end up having too much fish for our 10 quart or 10 pints here, we'll just throw those on with the smoker fish, and we'll smoke those up with that seasoning on. Okay, so there it is. It looks pretty good. So we're not going to add any more liquid to this at all. I am going to add the teaspoon of vinegar, and then we're going to go ahead and cap them. So I'll get them all prepped, labeled, and then we'll come back and we'll go from there. So next thing you want to do before I get ahead of myself, take a wet dish rag. You just want to make sure this top of the jar is nice and clean. You don't want anything to get in there that might break that seal. Now these lids have been boiled. They're really in hot water right now. So we'll go ahead. Whoop, I forgot the vinegar. Hold on. So 1 teaspoon of vinegar to help break down those little pin bones in there. Now we're ready. Just in case we spilled, we'll do that again. Cross your fingers. I hope this works out. And then we're going to put Cajun on top of this. And there you go. First one's all bottled up, ready to go in the pressure cooker. We'll get the rest of these loaded up, and we'll come back in just a minute when they're all ready to go in the pressure cooker. So it turns out I'm absolutely no good at judging how much trout will fit in a pint jar. We had enough to do 6 pints, and then I had just a little bit of the Italian left, and so I cut up a couple of the smoked fillets that we had marinating for the smoker to fill this jar completely up. But first time for everything. It's the first time I've pressure cooked. First time I bottled trout, so it's probably good to be a little on the shy side than trying to do a full batch anyway. So if you look on top of these, we got Cajun, Rudy's Rub, Old Bay seasoning, brown sugar soy. This is the smoker one, Italian, and lemon pepper. So they're all prepped, ready to go into the pressure cooker. Let's go outside, we'll get the water in the pressure cooker and see if we can figure that out. So I filled the pressure cooker, filled it with 2 inches of water before I put the jars in, and it looks to be just about right. I'd say you don't want it to cover the lids and the rings of when the jars are in. All the jars are labeled and they're all facing the right way, so that if this turns during cooking at all, I'll know that that's right way up in case that Sharpie rubs off during the cooking process. Okay, the heat is on our barbecue grill, the little side burner. I didn't want to break out my whole Camp Chef oven for one load of fish. Turns out that about 7 jars is about all this pressure canner fits anyway. So, good mistake on my part. I would have had to do 2 batches to get those other 3 done. So, with this pressure canner, since this is my first time, I'll try and explain it and learn right along with you. This little edge here is beveled and the inside of the pressure cooker is beveled. If you look, there's a little bit of vegetable oil on there. That's there just to help provide a seal. So it also has a gauge so you can watch. We're at elevation, our elevation is about 5,500 feet. So we're at 15 pounds is when it's what we need to kind of keep this at. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we can figure this thing out. Got these little safety things, thank heavens. So the thing that traumatizes me with these things is I remember back in the early 70s, I had a cousin who was pressure cooking in their house and something went haywire and the lid of this thing flew off and knocked a great big hole in their kitchen ceiling. So I've been a little afraid of using a pressure cooker until this point where our family, different family members and a family friend that we talked to has assured me that it's perfectly safe if you know what you're doing, which is why I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing, my first time. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these up. Said that you want to keep the gap kind of the same all the way around, and then as you tighten these down, if you look on the top, as you tighten these down, you want to do it like you're tightening a car tire. You go here, 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 here. So it all kind of settles in nice and even. So we're going to get these just snug without burning my hand off. Whew. The heat shooting up alongside that barbecue hood like crazy. All right, so here we go. We're going to look at the seal. Make sure it looks pretty even. Looks pretty good to me. So here we go. We're going to tighten this one. And we're going to tighten this one. And we're going to tighten this one. And we're going to tighten this one next. Don't know how tight you're supposed to tighten them, but I'm assuming fairly tight. All right, now we cross our fingers and hope for the best. So they say you let this kind of hiss off steam, this little vent right here, I think 10, 15 minutes or so. And then what you're gonna do is on your little rattle weight, for lack of a better term, I don't know what you really call this, but there's the 15 pound. So once this starts letting off steam for 10, 15 minutes, we'll put this on it. We're gonna watch our gauge to get up to 15 pounds. If it gets over that, we'll turn the heat down and just kind of babysit it. And once this starts rattling, it should rattle like 2 or 3 times every minute. Any more than that, you're too hot. Any less than that, it's too cool. So we'll babysit this out here. It's got a pressure can for 60 minutes for pint jars. So that's the plan. Cross your fingers. So while we're waiting for the pressure cooker to do its thing, we're gonna get the smoker up and going and get our smoked fish going on the Traeger. You wanna set your temperature, the lowest mine will go is 180. but you want to go between 160 and 180. You want that nice, gentle, cooler smoke to cure your fish, to preserve it. And so that's what we're going to do. And then we will take a potato, half a potato, and we'll rub these grates when they get a little bit warmer, and that'll prevent the fish from sticking. So we'll close the lid on that. I like to use this little handy dandy bungee cord to hold that lid down nice and tight. Keep all that smoke around the meat or the fish, whatever you're doing, as long as possible. So we'll let this get up to temperature. We'll go grab a potato and bring the smoked fish out, and we'll get that loaded on here and get it smoking. So we're kind of discombobulated here a little bit. We just moved the grill away from that post since I was going to use that side burner. Didn't want to have any problem with that. So if you can see over the grill, we're going to open up our Traeger, which is now at 161 degrees, which is just about right. Then we're going to take our potato, and we're going to clean our grill, actually coat our grill so stuff doesn't stick to it. Since we didn't leave the skins on it, which is something I normally do, and then you just peel the fillet right off the skin. So there you go. That's nice and coated. Now, we'll take these marinated fillets. You can see that, you see the brown sugar glaze on those. Almost like you could eat them now. They look so good. So unfortunately, that's all we had, because I had to rob some of these to fill that last jar. But now what I do is just take a little bit of lemon pepper, and just sprinkle it, nice good coat on top of it. Gives a little flavor, but also makes it look really nice when it's finished with those chunks of pepper in it. So there you go. That's all there is to it. You just kind of keep an eye on it. When the fillet kind of breaks apart, then you know it's good to go. It's not rubbery anymore. It's nice and preserved in the smoke. And we'll close this up and let it do its thing for a few hours, and we'll come back and look at the finished product in just a bit. Our pressure canner is just barely starting to get a little whiff of hot air coming out of that nipple, if you can see it. But as soon as we get anyway, as soon as we get a good, it's got a little bit coming out of there. So as soon as we get a good heavy head of steam coming out of there, we'll set the timer for 12 and a half minutes. They say 10 to 15. So we'll set it for 12 and a half minutes. My first time doing this, I'm going to follow directions exactly, which is something I struggle with. So anyway, we're going to follow directions. As soon as that pops off for 12 and a half minutes, like I say, we're going to put this little weight on, then we're going to count the rattles. Rattle, 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 about 3 every minute. So we'll time that. Once we get that temperature just right, and the pressure cooker is doing that, we will set the timer for 60 minutes, and then we're good. Then we'll turn the heat down then. We'll give it ample time to cool down. I'm not opening this thing up prematurely. Don't want to blow my head off. And we hope we will have some nice preserved canned trout. Okay, if you can see that, it's starting to steam. We'll wait till that gets steady. Then we'll set the timer for 12 and a half minutes. So I was just sitting here waiting for the pressure cooker to get up to the right poundage and start rattling. And I was looking at my videos from last night when I was mixing the marinade. So in the smoker, oh, we got rattling. Listen to that. Oh, look, and our gauge is right at 15. We're going to watch that close. Keep it at 15 pounds, as close as we can get it. So let's pick up where I left off. Watching the video, and I'm noticing when I'm measuring the salt to go in that batch for the smoker, I think my brain was sunburnt because I was trying to double 1/8, and I thought that would be 2 quarter cups, which is a half a cup, but that's actually what the recipe did call for. It called for half a cup. So even though I described it inaccurately, I did follow the recipe, and I took took 2 1/4 cups of salt into that brine. Don't know what I was thinking, but the sun really got a hold of me yesterday, and it was getting late. So that's my excuse. See, it's rattling a little too much, and we're just a little bit over 15 pounds. So we're gonna come and just turn this down just a little bit, because we can't get that closer to 15. Get that little bugger to settle down. Okay, we've reached the end. I've actually done 70 minutes because some information I found out on the website said that it needs to go for 70. So we went for 70 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and turn the gas off, and we're going to wait for that gauge to go down to 0, and then we'll take the little rattle weight off and open this up and see what happens. Stay tuned. Before we check on the success or failure of our pressure cooker experiment, let's look at this fish. That is looking fantastic. Still a little bit mushy, kind of fillet. So we're gonna let it keep on drying, keep on curing. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, moment of truth time. We've let this cool down quite a bit. The pressure gauge says 0, so there's no more steam coming out of there. It's still pretty hot, but we're gonna undo this. I'm going to kind of undo it the way we put it together, crisscross, like lug nuts on a car tire again. I don't know what I'm so afraid of. I think everybody that lived through the 70s has a pressure cooker story that went sideways. Blew somebody up or something, and I think it's petrified a whole generation of us. But okay, we're good. Here we go. Well, at first glance they look good. We'll take our little handy dandy grabber thingers here and try not to drop our precious cargo. So there's the smoke one. The Sharpie did stay on, so I know what's what. Well, the fact we didn't break any bottles, I think, is a good sign. Okay, we'll let them cool. You can see they're still bubbling. So, but it looks to me, at first glance, the fish is all cooked. Looks good. We should hear these lids pop and seal if they haven't already. I'm not touching them because they're hot, but hopefully we were successful. So there you go. I think we were successful in canning our first batch of fish ever. I think I might invest in a pressure cooker. It was not as hard as I thought it was going to be, and not as scary as I thought it was going to be. I think these modern pressure cookers, especially when you've got this dual system, you've got the gauge and a little rattle weight thing, it's kind of a backup. I think in the old days they just had this rattle thing, so if this little vent got plugged for any reason, it built up excess pressure, and that's what caused the failure. At least that's my theory. Oh, I just heard a jar seal. Woohoo! 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 Well, 3 out of 7 ain't bad. Hopefully they'll pop and seal as they cool. So anyway, I think I'm going to invest in my own pressure cooker now, and I can can all kinds of meat. I can can chicken that we raise here on the homestead rather than freeze it, which I think would be an awesome thing to do. I'd get in probably pint jars. Do about, oh, that's a woohoo. About anything that requires pressure canning, I think I'm just going to experiment and just have fun with it. This doing it on the barbecue grill worked out really well. Setup was easy. did a fine job, held it up really well. So I think we're gonna count this as a win, and the smoked trout is gonna be done here in probably another hour. It's almost there, real close. You just saw it was just a little squishy still. But overall, I think our fish preservation project worked out really well. So thanks for stopping by the Little Hollow Homestead tonight and taking part in this little adventure and learning right along with me. And appreciate the thumbs up always, and the subscriptions are awesome. Thank you so much. Little teaser, we're gonna do a little change of direction in the next video. I've got a friend, family friend, who raises worms. I wish you could see my wife's face. She's so excited for this new project. Anyway, so he's raising worms for two purposes. Number one, to get protein for his chickens, and then to harvest, woohoo, worm castings for the garden. And I've been using worm castings forever when I plant my garden every year. So if I can create my own worm castings and then provide some protein for my chickens and have worms to take fishing with me at no cost, it'll be a good thing. My wife's going like this. But anyway, so stay tuned for the next video, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for stopping by.